Well, not Tylenol.
All right. It looks like it's going 30% CPU. That's to be expected. No dropped frames. And I am seeing YouTube, Odyssey, and Rumble all going. So I assume we're going. Hello, everyone. I should probably explain what's been going on. I've been having like just increased computer issues the last few months, but it's gotten really bad in the last couple of weeks. And I've pegged it to the motherboard, so I think I need a new motherboard, probably a new CPU as well, because usually you upgrade the CPU and you upgrade the motherboard. But yeah, it's been crashing, blue screening like 3, 4, 5 times a day.
No Schism. I've heard of Chweep Crib, but I'm not 100% familiar with it.
I haven't heard of that. So the way we're going today is that we're going 10 years ago as far as live streaming technology is concerned. I have OBS set just to use the CPU and back down to 720p because it's the PCIe lanes. When I run GPU-Z, my GPU is on a 16X, an X16 PCIe card. It's only seeing one of the lanes, which means there's something on the motherboard. And the blue screens, sometimes they're the GPU, sometimes they're the USB, sometimes they're the networking. The USB and the networking are on board, but here's the thing. They're still using the PCIe bus. So I think that part of the motherboard is gone. And I'm just either going to have to get a new computer or find someone who can install a new one for me because with my
another
pain
news,
the way it is, that's a little too much for me.
Oh, another
Back
news,
in the
YouTube
day,
finally
I could
admitted
do it on 10 computers at a time. Nowadays.
Yeah. And more positive news, YouTube finally admitted what we've all known for years.
Yeah, they at least admitted it about COVID, and they admitted that they had been banning people without cause. Now,
like,
they haven't admitted it on all the other subjects they do it on, and they haven't admitted to things like the demonetization, the shadow banning, and all the other crap they do.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. I think that's the biggest issue with the media nowadays is just all the gaslighting it does on you. Like recently, you know, you heard how Trump declared Antifa a terrorist organization, and people keep saying Antifa is not a terrorist organization. It's just an idea and a movement. While there's Antifa people rioting and burning down buildings and threatening to kill people.
Didn't Obama list it as a terrorist organization?
I don't know.
I think he did. Oh, yeah. And we got Zen over on Rumble. Hello, Zen. He's in with the links already.
Or infamously,
I do copy the links, Zen, and I might get to some of them at some point. Right now, I'm working on a Lord Killian video that someone posted to the Discord, which is 17 minutes of an AI video gish galloping about how atheists are dumb, basically.
Yeah.
That one's going to take a while, though.
Speaking of which, though, speaking of which, the ultimate gaslighting I have to admit is what happened with Charlie Kirk. You know, it was clearly obvious that the guy who shot Charlie Kirk was a radical leftist, but they kept saying, no, it was a MAGA guy who was upset that he wasn't radical enough. Even when we had his leaked, the evidence came out showing he was pro Antifa in many areas, and they kept saying, oh, no, he wasn't Antifa, he wasn't us, you know. Like, people, call out your own side. It doesn't mean you're wrong, you know.
Well, it's like the Trump assassin. They were trying to make out like, no, he's a Republican. See, he registered Republican. When, if you look at when he did it, it was just before a primary. So it was, and like most recent elections, so it's clear he was going to do it to try and primary someone. I don't know if it was Trump or someone else, but that's the only thing party registration means, people. It means you want to vote in the primary.
Yeah. I mean, if I recall correctly, you don't really have to, you know, be the party you register as. You just have to be registered as a party or independent, you know.
Yeah, the algorithm after 2016.
Sorry, that one snuck up on me.
If we went back to the YouTube of 15 years ago, where we had an algorithm that would show you things you wanted to watch, it would actually show you the videos from everyone you're subscribed to, and you could even do video responses. That'd be nice.
Yeah, man, I'm so old. I remember when you could watch whole movies on YouTube.
Well, you still can. You just got to pay for it.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, people would upload, like, really old movies. Like, they would either upload them in their entirety or they would post them in parts,
Yeah, because you could only upload 10 minutes at a time.
Yeah. Unless you paid for, like, a membership or something like that. Yeah, it's hard to believe not a lot of people fail to realize this. YouTube, it was originally meant to be a dating website.
Yeah,
Boy, how
because they're
times have
saying like,
changed.
oh, well, it's our 10th anniversary. It's 10 years of users, or 20th anniversary. It's 20 years of users sharing videos. I'm like, no, it's 19 years of users sharing videos because for the first year it was a dating app.
Yep. Ugh. Yeah, if I recall correctly, the original point was you would upload a video of yourself and say, hey, my name is Shane Killian, I'm 50 years old, my hobbies are this, that, and this, if you're interested in meeting up, here's how to contact me, stuff like that.
Yeah, back when it actually had social stuff. Oh, something else it had, comment threading that made sense. Before they did the Google Plus thing, you remember that?
No.
Oh yeah, they tried to make their own Facebook that was Google Plus and it failed massively. But they said, oh, we'll just make all the comments are Google Plus. And it was absolutely terrible and no one liked it. But instead of just going back to the commenting system they had, they made a new one and it sucks.
And remember when YouTube videos had stars so you could see if they were worth your time?
Yeah. Then they went to thumb up and thumb down, and then they went to not showing you the thumb down.
Yep.
Oh yeah, tags too. Yeah, Finding Zen's talking about tags.
Oh yeah, I've seen. Yep, when commentaries disappeared. Yep, I've had that happen quite a few times.
Oh yeah, comments didn't disappear when it broke some arbitrary standard.
Yep. I know that happened to me on one video, and I commented saying, wow, looks like the YouTube algorithm deleted my comment, and one person replied, oh really, what was your comment? And I basically had to tell them, dude, if I tell you what the comment is again, they're just gonna delete it again.
I can't even post links to my own video in the comments of my own video.
Yeah, and they're wondering why we're using weird terms like rope or that failed Austrian painter and whatnot. And the reason is because if we even mention it, even if it's strictly within an educational purpose, it gets taken off.
Finding Zen as if you ask ChatGPT if it can help fix a hard drive that tries to repair itself only to stop at the 40% mark. ChatGPT is good to ask about that. I've been using it for a lot of computer troubleshooting. It's been helping me about this. But as far as your specific problem, the best thing I can mention is SpinRite from GRC. If it can't get it going, nothing can. And it's completely non-destructive. But of course, you just want to get your files off of it. Well, if you'd kept backups, you wouldn't have to worry about it. Backups are great. Yeah, we still don't know what tweet cred is there, SKM. I miss those little computer stores where you could just take your computer and, the guys there would fix it up. But I'm wondering how many of those phone stores are really just those and they're just advertising phones because they've, included that and more people are wanting their phones fixed. But I'm going to try to call around to a couple of them and see if they can work on computers too.
I mean, I think what killed, a lot of independent computer repair industries was when the FCC or whatever said, "Oh yeah, the mathematical code inside your computer, yeah, that's property of the manufacturer, so you can't modify it without permission."
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to see on this
So you
one, I
couldn't
can because it's built from parts.
Yep.
It's SPINRITE. And it's on grc.com. And what it does is it's basically an ISO, and you put it on a CD or on a thumb drive or something, and you boot from that, so it's the only thing that's running. It's got all sorts of tricks that it does to try and restore the data. And like its last resort is it'll just try to read the sector a whole bunch of times, because bad sectors, they basically give you noise, but they're slightly more likely to have that data in with the noise. And so what it does, if none of the other tricks work, and Steve Gibson knows all the tricks with hard drives, I'm telling you, he's a master going back decades. But what it does, it tries to read the sector a whole bunch of times and then does a statistical analysis on it. And then it gets what it thinks might well be the data from it, and then puts it in a fresh block and then redirects it there and then continues going. So probably what you'll see is it'll go up to that 40% mark and really, really, really slow down, but it'll do its darndest to keep on going. And then when it's done, I mean, there's no guarantee that all your files will be restored, but yeah, you can at least get it off there. And then get rid of that hard drive, because the reason why it's doing that is that it's failing. Don't go, oh, well, I guess it's working now, I'll keep using it. No, get rid of it.
Okay, so Schism said the best term for sweep cred is algorithmic manipulation. I mean,
yeah, I haven't.
Yeah, they've been doing that forever.
Let's see if I can search on it.
Speaking of gaslighting and throwing fits, did you hear about Jimmy Kimmel? Yeah.
About how they're bringing him back, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is that, and I think you brought this up in the last podcast, like he kept saying, yeah, Trump tried to censor me because I said something about Charlie Kirk. You can't do that, that's violating my First Amendment. When according to actual people that were behind the scenes, Trump had nothing to do with it. It was literally the network saying, hey, Jimmy Kimmel, listen, buddy, that comment you said, a lot of people are pissed off. They're not going to watch it. Listen, we're not firing you, but we're going to suspend you until the whole thing blows over. That's another thing, too. They did.
But this is pure speculation on my part. But, I mean, his ratings have been dwindling.
Yeah,
and they've been dwindling for a long time. More and more money. I think they're trying to look for an excuse to cancel him.
Well, yeah, they can't. Yeah, because they can't just come out of the woodwork and say, "Yeah, Kimmel, you're not profitable anymore. We're going to have to let you go." Because I'm pretty sure he has a contract with them, and if they try to terminate him that way, he'll just sue them. So I think what they're going to do is they're just saying, "Yeah, we're just going to suspend you for a little bit until this whole thing blows over," and they're going to suspend him until his contract expires. And then when he comes to them to renew it, they're going to say, "Yeah, we're not going to renew your contract."
Yeah, but he could probably, back when he was big, get all sorts of terms put into his contract. To try and make it as difficult as possible to cancel him. And
yeah,
they were probably trying to activate some sort of morality clause or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I do agree with you, because I have heard, he's been on the decline. I mean, I didn't even like him even back when he was popular. I mean, he basically was a white male version of Whoopi Goldberg. All he did was go, "Republicans are stupid. I hate Republicans."
The only reason he got anywhere was because he had that roll on Wittgenstein's Money. And it went from there. He owes his success to a Republican.
Going back to the whole Charlie Kirk thing. I've actually met a couple people that have been going around saying, "Why are atheists coming to Charlie Kirk's defense? The guy was a creationist." Yeah, but he was a polite guy, Because I will give Charlie Kirk credit. He wasn't one of those religious fundamentalists that was like, "I'm a religious fundamentalist. I know creationism is real because the Bible says so, and nobody can convince me." He would literally say, "Oh, you don't agree with me? Okay, come talk to me."
Yeah, let's have a discussion.
Yep. Yeah, typically, even if you didn't convince him, you'd still leave on pretty good terms, Like, no joke, I literally looked up, his old videos, because Turning Point posted a lot of his old videos after he was killed, and I'm sorry, people, I can't see anywhere where he's calling for fascism or violence.
No.
Yeah.
Chat, let me know how Chris is coming through, because he sounds fine to me, but on the VU meter, he's kind of redlining. I just want to make sure he's not coming through squawky or anything.
Yeah. If I do sound bad, people, it's because I'm suffering a really bad cold right now, so...
Well, I'm just talking about your audio levels.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're both kind of like that. I did not sleep well last night, and because, having chronic pain, I medicate to get to sleep. It did not work. I laid there for like 2 hours trying to get to sleep. Finally got to sleep. The pain got me up at like 5. So yeah, I'm the Walking Dead today.
Well, according to social activists, that's because you're addicted. I still can't believe that happened that one time when you did that video about opioids, and literally there were a bunch of people telling you, it's like, "Shane, if you can't function without your pills, that's clearly a sign of addiction. You need help."
Oh God, the Doctor Patient forum just posted a clip from one of their live streams.
Whoa!
Where they were looking at one doctor lady, one of the I forget what her name is, but one of the ones on these important live streams where all the other doctors get their information from. And the first clip, exact same person, exact same live stream, was talking about how, addicts, you can benefit so much from, of course, Suboxone, buprenorphine, which is an opioid, by the way. It's not one that does anything for pain, but it's an opioid. Like, manage their addiction.
Sorry.
And it's really up to the patient, and the patient should decide how long they're on it. And if the patient thinks that they're good, well, that's just, and basically talking about the patient's, opinion in glowing terms, which I agree with. But then she went to talking about chronic pain patients and says, well, what you should do with chronic pain patients is try and get them off opioids, and you decide whether you taper them down to a low dose or off entirely. My preference would be get them off it entirely. It's like, oh, okay, now it's about your preference. You go over to chronic pain patients and it's about you. But then addicts are all about, oh, it's just whatever they want. Just give them whatever they want.
Yeah. Oh, man. I could go for some opioids right now. I'm kidding, not serious.
They don't do anything for a cold, by the way.
Yeah, true. By the way, Shane, if you're wondering why I screamed earlier, I almost swallowed a piece of Pop Top from the soda I'm drinking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Yeah, you know how the soda pops have those little pop tops and they're really fragile and they pop off easily. A little piece got in my soda and I was taking a swig and I felt something weird in my mouth and I spat it out. Holy crap.
They're better than they used to be. They used to be this thing where you put your finger in the ring and you pull them all the way off, which first of all, people would just discard them on the ground and you'd step on and ouch. But something else,
Cut your
and
heel.
I had friends who did this, and I'm like, why are you so stupid to do this? They just drop it in the hole and then drink from it. And there were actual cases of people going to the hospital because they had done that and swallowed the pop top.
Yeah. You step on a
That's
pop top,
actually
cut your heel.
because this is what a lot of people don't get in Margaritaville by Jamie Buffett, where he has to go home because he stepped on a pop top and got an infection. That's the kind he's talking about, not the kind they have on sodas today. The kind they had back then, which they were nasty.
Yeah, cut my heel, had to cruise on back home.
Yep.
Yeah. Speaking of Margaritaville, back when Remy, the Reason TV parody guy, did that song No Margaritaville, I'm surprised he didn't include the line, "Some people claim that there's an orange man to blame," in the chorus. That would have been funny.
It would have been.
But we know, it's our own damn fault. Which is true, I mean, this one comment I read a long time ago says that, the sad reality with politics is that we gotta take some responsibility, because here's the thing that many people forget to realize. People always ask, why do politicians keep getting away with corruption and all this bad stuff? And the answer is actually kind of simple, and, it's not easy to fix, but, it is a simple answer. We let them. We literally see this with gun control.
They have totally discredited all of the things that are supposed to be in place, like impeachment. Has impeachment ever been used for what it's meant to? Andrew Johnson, impeachment, completely bogus. Clinton, impeachment, completely bogus reasons. Trump, both times, completely bogus reasons. So many presidents have done so many things that they should have been impeached for.
Yeah.
But don't impeach him for that. Impeach him for getting a blowjob from an intern and lying about it. God, who cares?
Yeah, that's another thing too. Many people fail to realize Bill Clinton, he was not impeached, for having an affair with Monica Lewinsky. He was put on trial because they asked him that while he was under oath, "Mr. President, did you have an affair with Monica Lewinsky?" And he famously said, "I did not have sexual relations with that woman." And when it came forward, they said, "Holy crap, that's perjury. We got to get rid of you, buddy."
How many times have presidents committed perjury? And they say things like that under oath.
Oh, yeah.
There were plenty of completely valid reasons to impeach him, but they wouldn't do that.
Oh, yes, because I agree with you on there about Charlie Kirk. Yeah, so many people. Yeah, look, I don't want to hear you say, "Well, we're just trying to prevent an evil dictator from genociding us," and then you have a poster of Che Guevara in your room.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or Mao Zedong.
So I guess people have seen about this Mormon church in Michigan. That there was some kind of attack there. I think it was a shooting and then it went on fire. And so like all of the people on X, they're going like, "See, they're attacking the Christians and there's a holy war against the Christians and all." I'm like, oh, now Mormons are Christians.
Yeah, Mormons weren't considered Christians weren't considered Christians up until the 90s, up until like the 20th century, right?
Oh, they will still swear up and down. No, Mormons are not Christians because they put someone above Jesus Christ. Joseph Smith is above Jesus Christ, even though he isn't. But
yeah. What's ironic about Mormonism in South Park? South Park says that everyone South Park says everyone goes to hell unless you're a Mormon. But some people have actually pointed this out. If Mormonism was the correct religion, then nobody goes to heaven because Mormons don't really believe in heaven. Like, they believe in it, but they believe that heaven's only for Joseph Smith, Jesus, God, and the angels. Everyone else goes to a different place. Yeah. Jehovah's Witnesses, they believe in something similar. They don't believe in necessarily heaven. Well, they do, but they believe that heaven is only for God, Jesus, the angel, and a select few 144,000 people that'll be chose to live there. Everyone else will live on a paradise universe under the rule of Jesus. That's what they believe in. That's another thing too about Jehovah's Witnesses. They don't believe in hell. They believe that when Judgment Day comes and you're a sinful, irrepentant person, God's just gonna smite you off the face of the earth because He loves you.
I don't know. It's all weird.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Chris Hitchens had a point. I mean, not Chris Hitchens. Richard Dawkins had a good point about the old religious testament, because there are times where God acts like an abusive parent, like He causes all this mass destruction and death, and then He's like, "Look what you made me do. You think I like doing this?" Yeah. Yeah, it's no different than the abusive parent beating up their kid and saying, "You think I like doing this to you? Huh, you little brat? Why do you think I'm doing this?" You know, it's not on them. It's all on you. I'll be right back. I gotta go to the bathroom.
All right. Yeah, other than that, I think it's a slow news day. Finding Zen over on Rumble says, even though I don't care for Charlie Kirk or Turning Point USA, that doesn't mean kill them. Yeah. Yep. Use your words, people. Going back to tweet cred, that's why you see far left posts on X getting millions of views and consequently more likes, while their conservative counterparts with more followers can only dream of that. I thought Elon put a stop to all that. I thought he switched algorithms.
Are literally just
Is it not quite conservatives are less censored, but yes, the algo is still boosting them. I've been debating whether or not I should get the that lowest paid tier on X, because I mean, let's face it, YouTube is shadow banning everything. And thank you to everyone who shares my videos, because I can tell when it happens, because it gives it a little boost in the algorithm. But there were a couple of videos where you guys just kept sharing and kept sharing and kept sharing, and they really did well. But for the most part, you know, it'll get shared a few times and then go back. The more you share, the better it's going to be. Inquisitive infidel, they deserve to stand in a room of people that know more than them and are correct to hear the idiocy of their own arguments. Yep. And let's see, Zen. Abusive parents deserve nothing. As for Donald Trump's recent corruption, I think Forgotten History might have to recant their least corrupt video on him. I hadn't seen that. And Scarface, I've been coughing for weeks. Yeah, it's been a bad summer.
Oh,
I think
man,
it might
I'm
be
sorry,
something about like the tropical storms that are out there. There's a difference in the place and the way they're forming. And I think they're just putting a whole bunch of new allergens, you know, spraying all those up this way. And so everyone's a little worse off.
Oh, so it's Man Bear Pig's fault. I mean, I do know, like, in July and August, my nose would, like, literally start bleeding, like, once a week. I get a really bad nosebleed, and I couldn't figure out why, and I later learned apparently it's because, of the smoke from the Canadian wildfires.
Ah.
Yeah, because they carry with them, you know, metals and ash and other materials that, when they get into your nose, they damage, the lining on your cartilage, and that makes them more prone to bleeding.
Yeah. That would do it.
Oh man, sorry. Keep trying to mute, but the cough keeps sneaking up on me.
Yeah.
I need fourth root here. I need to ask him a science question. Why does the cold how come the cold is only in my nose, but it makes my arms and legs feel like they're jello?
That's just part of what your body does trying to fight it.
Yep. Yeah, I saw a video one time, and apparently, like when you have a cold, the only symptom that's actually caused by the virus is the runny nose, because the virus attacks the cell lining, the cells that are responsible for your mucus lining. Everything else, that's just your body trying to fight the virus and clear the gunk.
Well, even then, the runniness itself is a response from your body because it's trying to flush it out of there. That's why it's so important to hydrate.
Yeah, like I've seen some of those like medical people say it's like, I don't get it. I don't get it. How is medicine supposed to make us feel better by suppressing our immune system? Shouldn't we be encouraging it? It's like, because believe it or not, that's typically what kills people. It's not the virus or the bacteria. It's basically because your immune system goes, "Oh no, we're under attack. Quickly, nuke the entire body."
Someone once described it as trying to fend off a burglar by setting her house on fire.
Yep. Yep.
I saw an account with 100,000 followers getting 1 million views, while Dave Smith with 800,000 only gets 50,000. From what I understand, at this point, subscriber count is just a vanity metric. It means nothing. It has nothing to do with how many people like your content. It has nothing to do with how many people watch your content. It has nothing to do with how many people are going to get your videos recommended to them. It's just a number.
Oh yeah, I mean YouTubers like Vegan Gains, they have a lot of followers and subscribers, but like 99% of them are people that are just watching him to make fun of him. Ugh.
Because then I've never heard of Gary Chambers Jr. Tony the Tiger himself, Thurl Ravenscroft. He is also the guy who narrated and sang How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
He didn't narrate How the Grinch Stole Christmas. That was Boris Karloff, but he did sing the theme song. Yeah, the narrator was Boris Karloff.
You're right, but he did sing it.
Recently there's been a string of people that actually, in a way, like, don't get me wrong, it doesn't justify him going down and stealing everyone's stuff, but you can't help but, empathize with the Grinch a little bit, because when you think about it, especially in the original one, the Grinch wasn't didn't hate Christmas because, he was evil, vile, and mean. He just thought it was noisy and it kept him up all day, and it kept him up. I mean, in the original cartoon, he even says, for 53 years I put up with it now. I must stop Christmas from coming, but how? Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, he wasn't evil, mean, and nasty.
Noise.
Yep. Fun fact that not a lot of people realize, that attitude the Grinch had, that's actually nothing new. You know what the Puritans did when they took over England in the 1640s? They banned celebrating Christmas. Yeah, because
the church for something like 1,500 years banned Christmas carols, because Christmas carols were actually a part of the Saturnalia celebration, which most of the Christmas stuff comes from. But the church didn't like people making their own music.
Yeah. You know what's interesting about the Puritans? Because I'm thinking of writing a book. That it's basically a retelling of Robin Hood, but instead of taking place during the Crusades, it takes place in the 1850s during the rule of Oliver Cromwell. And I was researching the Puritans, and you know what's interesting? The Puritans, they hated singing, dancing, and everything that was fun, but they were okay with sex as long as it was done between a man and a woman and they were married. And they
And
even
it was done
encouraged
for
sex to be
procreation.
pleasurable. Yeah. Yeah, I saw one funny joke about that where they go to their elder and they say, "Elder, we have a confession. Me and my wife were feeling a little frisky, so we tried anal for the first time." And he's like, "Oh, okay, no harm done. No harm done. Yeah, and we both enjoyed it so much we danced for glee. Dancing? You heathens!"
They still have not explained why the rate of school shootings before 1990 was only every couple decades. Yeah. Even when
Oh
you
yeah,
had guns, you had like gun ranges at school, like in the 50s and 60s.
yeah,
You
yeah.
taught
I mean,
kids firearms. You taught them firearm safety. You taught them safe handling and everything.
look, I'm not against censoring the media or passing laws because that clearly violates the First Amendment. But I agree with Dylan Kebble's mother. I think the media needs to stop reporting these mass shootings because the sad reality is that there's being more and more studies done that shows that that's the reason why these psychopaths are doing that. They're doing it for the infamy. Yeah, I've stumped Australians by the same way. Like they always bring up, the Port Arthur massacre, and there's like, but then we banned guns, so we've never had a major incident like Port Arthur ever again. And I'm like, okay, well,
Not true.
remember what?
It's not true.
Well, I know, but I would say, let's say it was true. Let me ask you this: remember the mass shooting at Sydney where a guy took an AK-47 and murdered 80 people, people, people the year prior? No. Oh, you remember that sniper that shot a bunch of people at Brisbane? No, exactly, because they didn't happen.
There have
And that's the thing
actually
that people
been
can't.
more people killed and a greater number of massacres in the years since the Port Arthur massacre than in the comparable number of years before.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that's another thing too. And yeah, it's just. Yeah, I think I know why politicians pass gun control and all that. It's because at the end of the day, this is the fatal flaw of democracy. You don't get elected by upholding your oath and respecting the rights and freedom of the people. You get reelected because you do something. And if a politician admits that listen, the FBI's looked into it, and there's not really a whole lot we as the government can do to stop these mass shootings, but maybe individuals can. People will say, "Oh, you're incompetent."
As Zen says, Australia needs to get over that atrocity. Yeah, they're acting like it's like worse than 9/11 or something. I'm sick of mass shootings being used to shill for gun control. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh
And
yeah,
that's
they're even
exactly why the news media does it, Chris, what you were talking about earlier, because it's a
yeah.
great way to call for gun control. How many
Yep.
times do they cover the case? And I mean, you see this every now and then. People will show either video someone took with a cell phone or security camera video. Someone comes into a convenience store or something, tries to rob the place with a gun. Someone else there pulls out a gun, points it at him, maybe even gets a couple off. And man, the guy starts running. It's like you could put in, the cartoon noises, with the percussionist making the silly, noises of the, cartoon character just spinning his heels on the floor trying to get purchased so he can start running.
I also hate it when there are cases of self-defense shootings, people treat the shooter like Jimbo Kern from South Park. Like a perfectly good example is that kid that was shot, while playing Doorknob Ditch, and so many people were like, they were just playing Doorknob Ditch. Why did they have to die? Ignoring the fact that one, this happened in the middle of the night, and two, the kids didn't ring the doorbell and run away. They kicked the door. You know, I can imagine, like, if you're trying to sleep and in the middle of the night you hear someone banging on your front door, what are you thinking? Do you think it's a kid? Do you think it's, oh, those rapscallions playing a prank? No, you think it's a burglar.
Yeah, it was a bolt-action rifle, and it wasn't an AR-15. It fired, I think it was a 30-06, which is a much bigger round than the 5.56.
That's another thing too I've also noticed is that when a mass shooting is conducted without an AR-15, the news media doesn't cover it. Like there was that one school shooting that happened in Texas, and the reason why almost nobody talked about it was because the shooter used a pump-action shotgun and a revolver.
Yeah, more mass shootings are committed with handguns.
Yeah.
And more people are killed every year with hands and feet than with rifles of all kinds.
Yep. Oh. And I love the argument, and you especially see this with some Europeans, as they're like, "Well, we're peace-loving people, and we have no need of weapons." Well, then why do you need gun control?
Inquisitive infidel, we must do something. This is something, therefore we must do this. It's just the politicians being told they don't do enough. Yeah, that's actually called the politician's fallacy.
Yep. I once made a joke saying if I'm ever president and a mass tragedy occurs, and there's absolutely nothing the federal government could have done to prevent or help the tragedy except just let the free market take care of it. I jokingly said I wouldn't actually do it, but when they say, Mr. President, you gotta do something, I'd be like, okay, and then I'll start picking my nose.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll be like,
why don't we all stand
Mr.
around
President,
picking our noses? Hey, we're doing something. I'm helping.
Yeah. Yep. And to be real, I think by picking your nose, you're contributing much more to helping people in a disaster than you are or if you actually did something.
You can get bolt-action rifles even in Australia, so there's no way to spin this for gun control, yeah?
Yeah, because, there's a lot of people that live in the outback, and, the outback is full of dangerous animals, so are you really gonna be willing to tell the Aborigines and some of the people that live out there that says, yeah, because we're afraid of mass shootings, you can't even own bolt-action rifles to go hunting or defend yourself from wild animals?
Whereas Shadiversity has been doing videos on, they banned machetes, and guess how well it worked?
I know the UK, they banned a lot of like ninja weapons, even though many martial arts experts pointed out that most ninja weapons aren't really that deadly.
Yeah, they're mostly stupid, like nunchucks.
Yeah. Yeah, like a perfectly good
I actually
example
no
being
longer
the
think that some of these politicians have good intentions for gun control. Oh, no, they don't. Yeah. I think some of them are scared or have criminal benefits. Oh, they just want power and control. That's what it's all about.
Oh yeah. Honestly, even though I do disagree with that, that whole thing that Trump did where he said that he thinks that maybe trans people shouldn't be allowed to own guns, I think, even though I still oppose it, I think it brought up a pretty good point and it finally exposed people because at the end of the day, I disagree with people that say the left wants to ban guns. They do not want to ban guns. They just want to make sure you can't own guns. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Only the people's
they want
volunteer
their people to have guns.
Yep. Only the people's volunteer forces can own guns. But
they'll say no one should have guns. You don't need guns. Why do they need guns while they walk around being, accompanied by armed guards?
Yeah. Oh yeah, That's another thing too. I hate it when people try to say, "Oh, Hitler didn't ban guns. He actually lessened, the rules and regulations." Yeah, and he did. And when you look it up, well, it's kind of true, but when you look it up, only members of the party and Aryan Germans were exempted from those regulations. So again, that only proves my point. Hitler wasn't trying to ban guns. He was just trying to make sure that only people who agreed with him had them.
You had to be of the right race, and you had to join the Nazi party.
Yep. The only people allowed to own guns in Nazi Germany was the Wehrmacht, the SS, and a handful of people chosen by the Nazi party. Everyone else, you're at the mercy of the state.
They prove that a simple trip to the hardware store can arm you better than most weapons. It's funny, whenever they do one of those gun buybacks,
Yep.
And they'll say, oh, we'll pay you. I don't know. It's probably more than that today, but I remember back in the day, they pay $150. And you know what most of the weapons turned in were? Slamfire shotguns, which you can make for about like $30 of equipment at the hardware store. So you just go and you make a bunch of these, and then you just go around. Oh, I found this gun. I want to turn it. Okay, here's your $150, and man, that's clear profit right there. That's like $120 clear profit.
And some gun stores were even getting rid of their surplus inventory. Like if they had a really rusty, double barrel 12-gauge shotgun on their wall, and it was clearly, it's old and it's probably not safe to fire, so no one's gonna buy it, and they're trying to give it away like they're more or less like they say it's for sale, it's only $99, which by that point they're practically giving it away. They started realizing, hey, if we take this really old crappy shotgun to the police, they'll pay us $150 for it. That's $51 profit.
It's both. They want power and they want their criminal friends to be better able to extort people to fill their coffers and stay in power. Yeah. I'm not against AI art and the technology, but I can't call prompters who have AI generate works artists. I admit I have limited knowledge of AI art app. I figure their apps is more freehand. The one I use is called Invoke. It's open source. It's on GitHub, I think, as Invoke AI, all one word. But yeah, you just download it and run it on your own computer. And man, the things they've been doing with that over the last couple of years is incredible. It's basically becoming a Photoshop killer.
Yeah.
Because you can sketch out your own layers and work with it and make new layers on top of it and do layer adjustments to individual layers.
And as some movies like Star Wars Rogue One have shown, they're even able to bring some actors back from the dead. Yeah, in Rogue One they used AI to cut to I mean, the actor who played Tarkin was a different actor, obviously, but they used AI to modify him to look like Peter Cushing back when he was a younger man.
Yeah.
They forgot one very important detail, though. Tarkin's supposed to be wearing comfy slippers.
But I mean, anyone can do that. Just freely downloadable open source stuff.
Well, it's a joke because one very famous fact about Star Wars was that Peter Cushing, he had really big feet really big feet, and the uniform they got for him, the boots were way too small and they were extremely uncomfortable and they were difficult to put into. So whenever he was filmed, where he was like filmed sitting down or only filmed from the chest upward, he would wear slippers instead. He would only wear the boots for full body shots.
I would find AI more useful for bigger productions than independent art. I disagree. AI is going to, help a whole lot of filmmakers make a lot better VFX and things like that. You have to know what you're doing, of course, and you have to have the artistic eye to make it good. There's no substitute for that.
Yeah, and it's one thing I hate too.
If you don't have the budget for a big VFX team.
It's one thing I also hate too about people, when you tell them, AI art can help people who want to be artistic bring their dreams to life, but they either lack the art skills nor the money to hire an artist, can help them. And they say, well, why can't you just learn to draw? It's not that difficult. And yeah, you're right. It's not difficult to learn how to draw. The problem is learning to draw good.
Well, and there's a difference. And this is what gets me. Like the guy I had Lord Killian tear into and all of these others, they're like, oh, look what I do to draw and how I form this and how I form that. None of the things they are talking about, none of them has anything to do with being an artist. That's being an artisan. There's a difference between being an artisan and being an artist. You can be both, but there are plenty of people who are artisans and who aren't very good artists, just looking like police sketch artists. A lot of them are just terrible.
Oh yeah, there's been cases of people that have been falsely arrested because they look like the sketch artist, because they look like the sketch artist, and then they show the guy to the victim, and it's like, yeah, that's not him who attacked me. It's like, well, what do you mean? Well, what do you mean? He fits the picture description perfectly, and the person looks at them and they say, and the victim goes, that looks nothing like the guy who attacked me.
Yeah.
Yeah. It does kind of remind me of this one funny joke one time, where a little white girl is she's reporting a sexual assault, and she's going into detail, and they're like, okay, what did the guy look like? He was short, he was white, he was bald, and he looks like that. And then when the police sketch artist is done drawing, the picture is of a stereotypical Afro black guy, with the big hair and all that.
One of my hopes is to get to live to see 3D printed semi-auto rifles. They already exist.
Yeah, they're not very reliable, but they exist.
Well, no, if you get a 3D printer that does metal, because the reason why they say they're so reliable and they're unreliable and don't work well is because people are using the plastic or the resin 3D printers for that.
Yep.
And you don't want that for, your barrel.
Yeah.
And it's not going to work for your firing pin.
Oh, hang on, my mom's calling me.
All right. Not in rifle calibers? Yes, in rifle calibers. There are entire GitHub repos that have all of the downloads you need to be able to print AR-15s and 30-06s, Winchesters and everything else. So prompters are artisans? No, the AI is taking the place of the artisan. It's up to the user to be the artist. That's the point. I actually downloaded one of the repos, not to do 3D printing, but just to use in Blender. And if you've looked at some of my gun control, my anti-gun control videos on YouTube, and I show you different guns, those were done in Blenders using those download files.
Sorry.
Like when I show you the AR-15 and the FN FAL and all of those. Yep. Yeah, that's where I got those models from.
Yeah, and the thing is, people need to realize you don't even need a 3D printer to make an automatic weapon. There's two famous guns, that are basically the middle finger to gun control. That's the British Sten gun and the Ludi gun.
Well, if you know what you're doing, then all you need is like $5,000 worth of machinist tools, and you can make any gun you want.
Yeah, that's the reason why the Sten gun was popular in World War II among anti-Nazi, guerrillas and partisans, because it was a very easy gun to make,
But if you look like over in parts of Asia where we got gun control and we've really, smashed down on it and no one can get guns. That's what you have. You have machinists making fully automatic assault rifles for the Yakuza and the Triads.
Yeah. Or that guy who literally made a matchlock pistol out of wood and spare plumbing parts, and he used that to kill the Japanese prime minister.
But I mean, these are like proper guns. They're like AK-47s and things like that, just made by hand out of machinist parts. Every bit as good as the real thing.
Yep.
3D printers lower the difficulty level. Well, that's why they don't like them.
Yep.
Because they don't like it when you and I have the power.
Yep.
What process in making AI art will the user do to create? Oh, there's all sorts of different ways. When you're really getting into AI and making art, the prompt is just a tiny part of it. And it's really difficult to explain because there's a lot of technical stuff you have to learn. But like the way you work with different layers and different control nets and how you apply, different lures and all the masks that you do. And all the preliminary drawings and sketches and everything else that you do. You don't have to be any kind of, fantastic drawer. You just make a little scribble of what you want. And then if you know what you're doing, the AI can help you turn that into your vision.
That's another thing I hate when leftists say is when they say it's like, well, why are you guys criticizing Antifa, you guys are all in favor of the people fighting back for their government. Well, here's two reasons. One, Antifa's not fighting for freedom and democracy. They're fighting to establish a communist dictatorship. And two, and this is one I think you've mentioned before in previous live streams, is like, we're not necessarily against fighting back against a tyrannical government, but you also need to remember the government is really, really good at inflicting violence, and 9 out of 10 times, if you try to start an armed revolution, you're gonna get your ass kicked.
Well, the thing is,
like, fun fact,
Antifa is a great example of how you have that decentralized, where the people at the top have all the deniability, the politicians and the people in the news media, how they just say, oh, that guy's a fascist, and then a member of Antifa goes and kills them, and they're, well, I didn't mention, but that's they gives them deniability.
Oh yeah. Kind of like what that one Islamic terrorist.
You cut out. I don't know what happened, Chris, but we cannot hear you. Only time an armed revolution will succeed is if the government is royally screwed up. But by then, more likely, your own security forces will turn against you.
Can you hear me now? Shane, can you hear me? Okay. Yep. Yeah, I was about to say there was that one radical Islamist who was I can't pronounce his name because obviously he was Arabic, but he would do that too. He would if there were he was involved with that stabbing over Charlie Hebdo, and basically if anyone draw a picture of Muhammad or made a video criticizing Muhammad, he would go, these people are filthy heathens and heretics. Here's their name, address, their work schedule, but don't.
You cut out again. Hello. You cut out. Yeah, I mean, the American Revolution succeeded because in the colonies they were able to kick out the royal government of their own states and put in their own people, and so they had their own local governments, working for them and fighting for independence. And of course the British government was across the pond, and so that very much gave them a team advantage.
Can you hear me now, Shane?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. Like I was saying earlier, there was that Islamist who was involved in the Charlie Hebdo killings, where basically what he would do is every time someone would draw a picture of Muhammad or make something that was criticizing of Islam, he would say this person is an infidel and must be punished. Here's their name, their phone number, their where they live, their work schedule, where they work and what they do. Oh, but please don't go visit them or attack them. Just protest them. Yeah. And what did Islamists do? They tracked those people down and killed them. And then when the European and U.S. authorities came to that guy, he said, "Oh, I didn't tell them to do it. I just told them where they lived." Plausible deniability. Yeah. Another thing too, you mentioned the American Revolution. Another thing too, and this kind of goes back to what I was saying. Many people fail to realize this, but the American founding fathers, when they decided to secede from the British Empire, they tried their damnedest to do it peacefully. If I recall correctly, they still said, okay, listen, we've had it up to here with the taxes, and we don't want to be a part of the British Empire anymore. But here's the deal: if you let us secede, we'll still be trade partners. We'll still trade with you. We won't abuse British citizens, and if they want to leave to Canada, we'll allow that. And the British responded by saying, we're declaring you in rebellion. Now you're under Admiralty law. And that's when they had no choice but to go to war. It was the British that started the conflict.
Well, yeah, because they were like doing all the protests and everything for 10 years, and it was basically, Concord and Lexington, where the colonists were finally like, okay, enough of this.
Yep. Yeah, another fun fact too is that contrary to popular belief, our biggest beef with the British wasn't even King George III. It was mainly with Parliament.
Well,
Yeah,
no,
I
it
think
was
the
King
real
George
reason why.
too.
Yeah, but I think the real reason why people really got pissy with King George III and the Revolutionary was because Parliament wasn't listening to us, but there was one ace in the hole left, and that was the King of England, because people fail to realize the king does have, the royal family does have some powers, and one of their powers is they can overturn a decision by Parliament, and basically that's what we did. We petitioned him and said, listen, King George, we're loyal subjects, most of us still love you, but Parliament is taxing us to death, you gotta stop him. And he basically responded by saying, I'm taking the side of Parliament, you guys are in rebellion. And for a lot of patriotic Americans, that was seen as a massive betrayal.
Well, I mean, he was also which act was it? Was it the Townsend Act? One of those acts was saying that basically every single document belonged to the king and you had to have King George's own seal on it or whatever. Basically, so they could spy on all your documents.
Yep.
Because while Parliament was pretty much legislating, the king was the full executive.
Yep. I mean, that's another thing I've heard from some European gun control advocates when the American Revolutionary War is brought up, is that they said your right to keep and bear arms didn't defeat the British; it was the French coming to your aid. Here's the thing, people. Even though the French hated the British, they didn't get too involved right away. They didn't actually start getting involved until they realized, hey, the American colonists are actually doing pretty good for themselves. You know what? I think they actually have a chance of winning. Because you don't need to be a war historian or a political expert to know that you don't pick a side in a conflict unless you're absolutely certain of who actually stands a chance of winning. Because otherwise, the actual winning side, if you voted for the other side, they might take that as a threat, and now you're in their crosshairs.
Oh no, there's going to be a government shutdown. Please, please, please shut down the government. They keep saying it, they never do. Every time they say they've shut down the government, I still have to pay my taxes.
Oh yeah. And what's another funny thing about those government shutdowns? It's always, they never shut down like things that are actually bleeding us dry, like the IRS. They only shut down like the parks and stuff that people generally enjoy doing,
Yeah, funny that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's funny coincidence. Yeah, I like reading about history, and I know like we can't put a modernist at look back of hindsight on them, but some of the controversies throughout the United States are just like, they're kind of one of those things where you kind of look at them and you're like, why the heck were these controversies? Like, it's one controversy that people make a big deal out of, but I think it's kind of silly, was the teapot dome scandal from the Harding administration.
That one was kind of silly.
Yeah, it's like he was corrupt because he sold a Navy oil field that the U.S. Navy wasn't using to a private company that could actually make use of it. The scoundrel. Apparently, Harding was actually kind of the Donald Trump of his time, because apparently he actually liked the criticism. In fact, there's a legend that said the day he had a heart attack, he was actually watching the news with his wife. Apparently, she was telling him and according to his wife, his last words before he had the heart attack was, "Go on, keep reading," because she was reading him what the newspapers were saying about him, and he was laughing. Yeah, he was laughing, saying, "Go on, keep reading," and then he had a heart attack and died. By the way, Shane, it's one president that proves that, contrary to popular belief, from 1840 to 1980, there was a curse on presidents. You know what's proof? You know which president proves that isn't true? Zachary Taylor.
Yeah.
Because he died in office. And he wasn't elected on a year that was subdivision by 20. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, poor guy. Yeah, poor guy. He died because during a hot 4th of July day, he drank a glass of ice milk, and the ice contained typhoid fever. At least that's what many historians think it was.
Yeah, maybe.
Go on.
I'm just looking through the headlines now, and there's some deli meat that's been recalled for listeria. And it's like there have been so many recalls in these past few years. My wife talks about from the store, from all the products they've had to recall. And I think it's just because in COVID, they were stupid and shut down all the supply lines.
Oh, yeah.
And so we've had to rebuild them from scratch. Before, they had been the results of decades, if not, more than a century of, the supply chains being set up for, both safety and quality. And you take all that down and you basically got to start over.
And it's another company that gets blamed. It's another tragedy that gets blamed on the free market, but it was really kind of not really anyone's fault. It was the incident with Jack in the Box and the food poisoning scandal. Because so many people say it was all Jack in the Box's fault because they cooked their burgers at 140 degrees Fahrenheit when it actually should be at 160 degrees. But I looked it up, and apparently most germs that make you sick, they can be killed at 140 degrees. The problem was that on that particular year, they got a bad batch of meat that was contaminated by a strain of bacteria that was more resilient.
Yeah, I mean, it was their suppliers that were to blame, Jack in the Box.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing too. Every time you hear a food poisoning scandal from a restaurant or a brand, everyone goes, "Oh yeah, it's because Walmart or whatever is doing crap." But then the inspectors go there and they find, "Wow, this place is cleaner than an operating room. Why are people getting sick?" And what do they find? It's usually the manufacturer or the distributor.
Yeah.
Yep. If I recall correctly, when there was that incident with
it's the manufacturer or someone who finds it, and then they talk to the FDA or the USDA or whoever, and they say, "Hey, it looks like we got some contaminated meat. We're going to recall it," and then they start, they start grandstanding, going, "We're making them recall this meat." And no, they recalled it, and they told you they were going to recall it. In fact, a lot of times they found that their meat was a problem and had to, like the ConAgra, I forget when that was. They had found it after the FDA or USDA rather had inspected it and given it their okay. And then ConAgra looked at it like, no, we need to recall this. And everyone was like, "See, that's why we need government."
Can't mutate, so it can't. Oh man. Sorry, I had to run to the bathroom. I'll be right back. That's fine. I had to run to the bathroom too. So. Yeah, Schism said the American Revolution was not a revolution, it was more of an evolution. The French Revolution was an actual revolution. I still find it so funny that historians love to romanticize the French Revolution because what did the French Revolution lead to? It led to Robespierre and then Napoleon. I don't think either of those guys were exactly speakers of the people.
Yep. All right, I'm back. I don't understand how some of these live streamers do it. They will sit there for 2 hours and just talk and barely take a breath. They'll finish the story, then they'll say, "Oh, okay, on to the next one." And they're just doing it. They don't stretch their legs. They don't drink any water. It's like, how do they do it?
Oh yeah, so many people think that video game streamers and podcasters, they're lazy. They sit in their chair all day, but but I've heard from plenty of people, that do that as an actual career, and they say it's not as easy as it looks, and I'm not just talking about sitting down. Not only is it painful, because anyone who knows anything about computers is that they don't always want to work.
Well, I mean, if you're going to do that, you need to stretch out and exercise and warm up. You need to
Yeah.
properly hydrate. You need,
Yeah.
it's not just sitting down and talking.
Schism brought up the Civil War. He said one myth that makes him laugh is the idea that the North was urban and developed and the South was rural and full of rednecks. Even though the North itself was 80% rural too at the time.
Yeah. And Finding Zen over on Rumble says the Pinkertons also got blamed for things they didn't do either. Yeah, there were things that the National Guard did, or the Army did, or the police did, but you'll hear
another.
Oh, see what the Pinkertons did? No, it wasn't the Pinkertons.
Or another good example, the United Fruit Company. Yep. Did you know about the massacre in the 1920s in Nicaragua when the United Fruit Company murdered a bunch of Sandino protesters? Then you look it up, it's like, that wasn't the United Fruit Company, that was the U.S. Marine Corps and the Nicaraguan National Guard.
Hello, Bogdan, Ukrainian libertarian. Wonder how many libertarians there are in Ukraine at this point. How many of them are all rah, rah, rah Zelensky, and how many of them are fed up? It's like, we hate Zelensky, we hate Putin, we hate everyone. Let's just not have governments. One of the reasons the South lost was the South was primarily growing cash crops. The North grew most of the food.
Yep, the South was mostly growing things like tobacco and cotton.
Well, and also the South lost most of the infrastructure since most of the battles took place there.
Yep. Yeah, you use that in the McNamara fallacy. Like, so many people look back and they say, "I don't get it. Why did the Confederacy lose the Civil War?" When you look at all these battles and like up until 1863, the South was killing it. Almost all the Union battles ended in defeat or were tactically inconclusive and didn't make much of a difference. How come the South didn't win? And the reason was because, like you said, most of those battles occurred in the South, and the losses the Union took, they could much easier replace them. The South couldn't. And actually, here's another thing too. Another myth about the U.S. Civil War, and I've heard this from actual Civil War historians, is that it was so bloody because of the early Industrial Revolution and all the weapons. The actual reason why the Civil War was so bloody was because, and this happened in both sides, there were many of cases of commanders who were given spots as generals, even though they had bare minimum, military experience. Some of them, like, their only military experience was that they were West Point graduates, but they never served. But why did they get the position? Because they were friends with Lincoln, or Dickens, the president of the Confederacy.
Amateurs look at tactics, experts look at logistics. Yep.
Yeah, Davis, I meant, not Dickens, Davis, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was I forgot what his name was, but yeah, there was a Confederate officer, and he was the absolute worst officer, the worst of the worst, and and some historians believe he was one of the major contributing factors to why the South lost. I forgot it. I can't remember which one it was. I think it might have been Braxton Bragg, but I could be wrong. And the only reason why he stayed in his position, even though he was hated by everyone, including the men that served under him, he was BFFs with Jefferson Davis.
But yeah, a lot of the South's majors and colonels and even generals got their positions because of political favors.
Yep. I think that's the reason why Robert E. Lee is seen with such high regards, with even within among both sides, because he was kind of like the only one that actually had a practical, expertise. He wasn't perfect and he made a lot of blunders, but compared to all the others, he actually knew what he was doing.
Yeah, that was why the South's incursions into the North, like at Gettysburg, when they were trying to make them pay for it, why they didn't work out so well. They just didn't have the logistics on their side. And they didn't have a good command structure to be able to pull it off.
It's one thing. It's one thing that many people who try to debunk the lost cause of the Civil War still refuse to, still either ignore or don't acknowledge. If slavery was 150% the reason the Civil War happened, then how come the Corwin Amendment failed to pass?
Yep.
Yeah. And I mentioned this before when a bunch of people were responding to your line about slavery. The biggest thing I hate about people who say lost cause is because here's the thing: we are not saying slavery had little to no involvement in the Civil War. It absolutely did. There's no denying it. The problem is that people say it was the sole reason and that reason only why it happened. But the truth of the matter is, if you look at what happened, what was going on between the North and the Southern states at the time, if slavery wasn't the issue, it would have been over something else.
I remember recently I challenged a guy. He had said every single state said that they seceded because of slavery. I'm like, okay, show it with me with North Carolina, Tennessee, and Virginia. And you know what he did? He pointed to South Carolina.
Oh yeah,
like
yeah, exactly.
North Carolina, Tennessee, or Virginia.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing too. People fail to realize it's not like the southern states all seceded at once. Initially, it was only like 4 states, and the other southern states were either undecided or they were against it. Like if I recall correctly, Arkansas and Texas, they did not want to secede, and they felt that seceding over slavery was a dumb idea. It wasn't until the North started rallying troops and started demanding that it's like, okay, you guys got to start sending us money and troops so we can fight the South. That they're like, whoa, no, we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And look, and even if and here's another thing too that many of the anti-slave, that the anti-lost causes are trying to defect is that even if slavery was 100% behind the Civil War, does it justify what the North did to the South afterwards?
No, of course not.
Yeah.
There's some interesting headlines because NASA has had all of these problems trying to get a delivery vehicle for its moon rover. So apparently now Blue Origin is going to do it. I've been wondering how much of a dark horse Blue Origin is going to be, because SpaceX is getting all the publicity, but Blue Origin is still doing their stuff. They're just kind of sitting in the background, just doing it all. So they might surprise everyone one day. Hey, look what we've been working on while y'all weren't looking. Oh, definitely a slow news day. Jeez. There are just so many puff pieces. Yep, more shootings in Charlotte. Oh God, I saw someone on X who was like, they were talking about the murder of that Ukrainian girl. And so someone responded like, it happened in North Carolina and that's a red state. It's like, oh my God, are you completely fucking ignorant?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, it's just like when
asshole?
they. Yeah. It's similar thing with like Texas too. Like people say it's like, oh, this terrible crime happened in Texas, and Texas, is a gun-toting red Republican state, and then it's like, okay, where'd the incident happen? It happened in Austin.
Oh God,
It's like, yeah,
Charlotte is
Texas,
like 10 times as blue as Austin. They are
yeah,
so
yeah, and
Democrat.
I know Texans, and they say, listen, the big cities, Austin and Dallas, Texas, is mostly a red state, but Austin and Dallas are full-blown Democrat. Fun fact, that's the reason why Illinois is such a liberal, is such a progressive, Democratic state, even though the majority of people who live there are conservatives, are conservative, farmers, and the reason is because Springfield and Chicago call all the shots. Yeah, that's the thing that not a lot of people realize. If you go to Illinois, if you ignore Chicago and Springfield, Illinois is mostly rural flatland.
And man, every time there's like a tropical depression going this year, everyone's getting all these alerts. Oh, there's a new tropical depression. It's like, oh my God, they happen all the time, people. Not all of them turn into hurricanes.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's why I'm sorry. I still don't like that South Park episode where they apologize to Al Gore, because the thing I tell people all the time, it's like, listen, Al Gore didn't just say Man Bear Pig was real. He said he was gonna kill us all. Yes, Man Bear Pig is real, but guess what? He's not killing us all. Schism said another reason the South lost was because the demand for northern grain was higher than southern cotton. Yeah, that's true. It's another alt history that wouldn't work. Is people say, well, what if Britain joined on the side of the Confederacy? Well, then Britain would have declared war on Russia, France, and Prussia because they were pro United States. In fact, Russia actually when the incident, I forgot it was when they seized that British ship and the British deployed troops to Canada, Russia actually mobilized its fleet, against British territories and basically said, listen here, if you launch any military actions on the United States, you're at war with us, because they were a strong U.S. ally and dependent on U.S. grain. So basically, if England joined the Confederacy side in the Civil War, we would have had World War I, but 60 years earlier than it actually happened. Hmm.
Yeah, it's amazing how much of California is actually red.
Oh yeah, there's tons of Californians I've met, who are, that's another thing. Like, you see all those, stories that people say, oh, but California, a lot of them, the fruit and grain comes from California, not those red states. Yeah, but most of them are in Northern California, and if you look at, political assessment, most Northern California mostly votes red. But why do they fail? But why do the Republicans rarely get in power? Because, like what Schism said, California, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Sacramento, they call the shots because they have the highest population. That's the reason why direct democracy is a terrible.
Incredibly corrupt.
Yep. Oh yeah, I remember when there was that one political.
Because looking at the AI cases, the main ones are in the Northern District of California. The ones that Disney and Universal, and it was in the Central District of California. And so, Reed Southern, who is a complete asshole. Oh my God, I don't want to read anything that he's done ever again. But anyway, he was saying, well, you want to bet on it? You want to bet on him? Like, no, because it's the Central District of California. Hollywood has them owned.
Yep. That's the reason why when that one
proper neutral district.
Yeah, that's the reason why when that one I forgot his name, but he was that one Californian, he wasn't he obviously wasn't governor, but he was like on like the state senate when he proposed an idea that maybe to best represent California governments, maybe the state should participate into three smaller states. Who was the one that threw the fit? The LA politicians, because they would lose
Yep.
they would lose their corruption,
Yep. Yeah, but that's the problem. And also with the OpenAI cases that are in the Southern District of New York. And what is just so frustrating about that is there's all of the stuff being done that we're not allowed to see because they won't release the documents. You can see them in the docket. Like, okay, I want to read the document. I'm like, nope, that's sealed. So yeah, what the hell are they up to?
Like, I think I've mentioned this before, but like some people always say, well, how can Trump fix everything? Because, because even if he does do what he promises, the fact of the matter is most of the stuff he wants to do requires Congress, and they don't like him. How's he going to do that? It's simple. There's actually a very simple way, and it's actually demonstrated by when Gary Johnson was in charge of New Mexico. You don't play their game.
Yeah.
Yep. Every time a bill comes to your pass, you send it back. You send it back with the words veto, reasons, teal deer.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. I saw that joke one time where it's like, yeah, so Congress, I read this bill you passed, the Save the Babies Act, and I read through it very thoroughly. I got a couple questions about the bill. Oh, what is it, Mr. President? Okay, right here there's a clause that says you want the Department of Interior to import walrus parts from Denmark. What does that have to do with saving the babies? Oh, well, you see, Mr. President, also right here, it says here you also want Congress to spend a couple $1 million to teach Taiwanese prostitutes to drink responsibly. What does that have to do with saving the babies? And just watch them all go, well,
gerrymander, but the Dems have very little left to gerrymander. Yeah, it's already gerrymandered. I don't know how you can gerrymander California any more than it already is. I think it was a mistake for conservatives and libertarians to leave the cities. They should have stayed and showed how their policies could benefit cities as well. Yeah, but they couldn't, because they couldn't get anywhere because of all the corruption.
Oh yeah, give credit where credit's due. There are genuine libertarians and actual conservatives in Congress and the Senate, and I've seen interviews with them with John Stossel, and they absolutely try to push bills, cut spending, and all that. And what happens? They basically just get told, "Oh yeah, Senator Libertarian, just go sit over there and just don't do anything. Let us do the talking."
Well, Trump's talking about, we got to primary Thomas Massie because he didn't support the one big beautiful bill.
Yep.
It's a fucking game.
Yep. I mean, it's kind of like what's happening in Portland right now, where the governor of Oregon's going, no, Trump can't do that. It's not fair. He can't do that. It's like, listen, whether you agree with him or not, from a strictly constitutional standpoint, Trump can absolutely federalize the National Guard. It's been established.
That's kind of the point of the National Guard.
Yep.
That's why it's the National Guard. Yep.
Same thing with Gavin Newsom, demanding that that National Guardsmen and ICE agents can't wear their protective coverings, and they have to be face first. Look, Gavin, you can disagree with ICE all you want, but that's not the way to fight it, because by saying, oh yeah, I'm not going to allow them and I'm actually going to arrest ICE agents, the sad reality is that ICE is a federal agency, and if you declare them a criminal organization, you're declaring supremacy over the president, and from a strictly constitutional standpoint, that's unconstitutional.
You can nullify, you can say, hey, we're not going to give you any money, we're not going to give you any people, we're not going to help.
Yeah.
But you can't stand in their way.
Yeah, Yeah, going back to the Civil War, that's another thing too. I love to bring up, because so many people say the Civil War was good because it ended slavery, and then they're like, all this bullshit happens. Why can't states have more freedom and independence against the federal government? Well, you got the Civil War to thank. Because going back, that's actually what the National Guard was. It used to just be the state militia of the state, and while they could be federalized, it took an act of Congress to do so. But after the Civil War, basically Congress and the president declared, oh, yep, all National Guards, they're now under the president.
Well, and they use that as an excuse to get rid of the militias, like, oh, no, you're not a part of militia. See, when the Constitution says militia, it really means the National Guard. It's like, okay, so now the president can nationalize the National Guard. No, he can't do that. Well, every other president could.
Yeah. I mean, hell, Eisenhower famously, federalized the National Guard when I can't remember if it was Alabama when that one governor refused to implement refused to allow integration, and he actually told the National Guard, "You guys have to block these black students from going to the school." And Eisenhower said, "Oh no, you don't." And not only did he federalize it, he sent the 101st Airborne to escort them in case there were any rogues within the Nat Guard that were going to try to pull it.
Yeah, I mean,
that just only goes to
integrate the schools without the National Guard.
Yeah. It just goes to show those liberals, they claim that Trump's violating the Constitution. It's like, come on, guys. Like, listen, yeah, Trump is not a good guy, and yes, he is pushing his limits, but you guys are not any better, you know. Yeah, going back to what we were saying about the freedom of speech, like, so many people are saying, "Oh, I got fired because I celebrated Charlie Kirk being murdered. And my job fired me. That's censorship and violating my freedom of speech." It's like, no, the company saw what you did, and they said, "Hey, that behavior is not appropriate, and it doesn't fit our company. We're gonna let you go." You know, that's the thing what you said earlier. Like, that's the thing people fail to realize. Almost everything in the Constitution, except some of the more recent amendments, they have nothing to do with you. It's all about establishing what the federal government and state governments can and can't do.
Right. I mean, if you don't like what someone said, you can fire them because you have freedom of association.
Yeah, that's why, I don't think the quartering, when the quartering was talking about Charlie Kirk and he says he's no longer a free speech absolutionist, so it's like, well, here's the thing. You shouldn't be a free speech absolutionist, because if you were, that would mean all freedom of speech is protected, and that means if a Jehovah's Witness comes to your neighborhood, comes into your house, he enters in and he starts talking about the Watchtower, and he's annoying you and ruining your day, by a free speech absolutionist standpoint, you can't do anything about it because, hey, he's not hurting anyone, he's just preaching his beliefs. It's like, yeah, but he's violating my property and my desire to want to live a normal life,
But just understand that freedom of speech and freedom of association are part of the same amendment for a reason.
Yep. That's actually in a cruel, funny irony sort of way. That's the reason why that one part of the Civil Rights Act is technically unconstitutional, because at the end of the day, look, you discriminate all the time because it's just freedom of association. I think Walter Williams brought it up all the time. You discriminate all the time without realizing it. Like, here's a perfectly good example. Let's say you're recently divorced and you finally gotten over everything and you're going to start looking on the dating app again. If you go on a dating app and you say I want a woman, between the ages of 41 to 55 years old, I want her to have this and that. Right there, you're discriminating, because that means women who are younger or older than that, they can't get to you.
Now, it's a different matter if, like, we always knew it about YouTube, but we got confirmation that YouTube was doing all of the COVID censorship at the behest of the Biden administration. That's the point where you're a state actor. And now the First Amendment gets in.
Yeah, exactly. That's something that, we brought up before. You don't need to be a free speech absolutist. If you can prove that a company is firing you because of pressure or orders of the government, then, like you said, I forgot what the motion's called, but it gets declared a state actor, and then it has to obey the Constitution because, you're acting on behalf of the government.
Well, it's not just being pressured. It doesn't matter if it's done with a fist or a high five. If you're colluding with government or if you're pressured by a government, either way, you're a state actor.
Yeah, speaking of which, there's actually been some interesting revelations about South Park, because a lot of people are questioning what the hell's happening to Matt Stone and Trey Parker and why they're acting the way they are. So people are looking it up, and guess what? The reason why South Park never made a joke about the Hunter Biden laptop, because here's the thing: one of their biggest producers and their financial backers, he's the Biden's lawyer. So it kind of makes you wonder.
Yeah.
Like, look, someone could argue. It's like, well, it would be unfair to make fun of Biden when he's old and all that. It's like, yeah, but his son's open game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or why not Kamala Harris? Actually, South Park kind of did a joke, that with Kamala Harris without it actually being Kamala Harris, in the episode they had with Hillary Clinton, where one of the reasons Hillary Clinton lost the election was because Every time they told her, listen, you gotta say exactly what we say, and she says exactly what they say, even when it compromises her. Because that's literally why Kamala Harris lost the election. It's literally because she had no views of her own. She was literally just going back to the Democrat Party and saying, okay, what's my agenda? What am I lobbying for? It's like, okay, you gotta lobby for this and that. Okay.
And then when someone asked her a question that required her to go off script, she didn't know what to do.
Yep. And I think, a thing that really hurt her was her refusal to appear on Joe Rogan, because I think we had this discussion before. So many people say, well, if debates, are scripted and rigged and all that, then how can we truly know what a person is really like? Simple. Bring them on a podcast, have it just between them and the podcaster, just have them talk, gibberish for 3 hours, and eventually their real self is going to come out. When Kamala said, it's like, no, I'm not going to appear on Joe Rogan unless he comes to me, and we're going to limit the time to 1 hour. That clearly shows she doesn't want to have a productive conversation. She wants to control the narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, some people have pointed out, it's one funny parody that South Park kind of could have done about Joe Biden, is that they could have made Joe Biden like a Weekend at Bernie's president, where like he's either dead or he's so out of it and he's so crippled, mentally speaking, that literally the Secret Service and the Democrat Party have to hold him, and they basically do like Weekend at Bernie's, and they're like, oh yeah, he's fine, he's just sleeping. Isn't that right, Biden?
That's basically what Jill Biden did several times when she was kind of moving him to get him on his mark.
Yeah. Yeah, because, look,
but no,
we're not
he's
saying
as
he was
as
too...
he ever was. Oh, give me a break.
Yeah. Yeah, like, I'm sorry, we're not saying he's too old. He was too old to be president because, to insult him. There were literally times where you could tell, he was having, a dementia moment, and it seemed like he didn't even know what century he was in.
Well, and it wasn't even about his age, like the chronological number. It was his mental condition.
Yeah. Like, I'm not gonna lie, there were plenty of times where I saw his speeches where I felt like, out of the blue, he was gonna suddenly go, huh? What? Where am I? You're not my wife. Where's Jill? Oh man, I gotta poop. Where's my Metamucil? Where am I again?
It was fun doing his voice.
Yeah. Yeah, or that one joke I saw that one time, where he delivers that epic speech about how we gotta bring ourselves together and not let Trump divide us again. And then afterwards, he's standing in front of an open stadium, and the Secret Serviceman goes, "Mr. President, your speech ended 2 hours ago. You've just been talking to an empty stadium." And he goes, "Huh? You're not Jill. Where am I?" Hi, Mr. President, we're gonna go get lunch. Is that okay? Oh, is it rice pudding night? Or that one joke that South Park did with Rod Stewart, imagine that, where it's like where he visits the Pope, and it's like, so, Mr. President, how can we better accommodate you? Poop pants. What? Poop pants. Poop pants? Poop my pants. You pooped your pants? Poop my pants. Secret Serviceman, the President of the United States, pooped his pants again? Now, Mr. President, what did we tell you about holding it in? Apparently, it hasn't been confirmed, but apparently that actually happened. He actually had a senior moment, and he soiled himself while he was meeting the Pope.
Yeah, I think that also happened at like one of the summits, like a G8 or something. They were talking about like the smell coming from Biden.
Yeah, because like there were like some people next to him that were like grimacing, and they were looking at him, and then he had this look of discomfort, and he excused himself, got up, and when he came back, he had a different pair of pants on. Yeah, like, I'm sorry, Mr. Biden, but if you're at that age where you're struggling to be cognitively aware and, like, you cognitively can't tell when you have to go to the bathroom, look, you need to be spending your time in Florida at a nice sunny retirement home, living out your golden years with your wife, not in the White House.
SKM is talking about followers on X. You can translate interviews if the following is organic. It hasn't been. But I think there might be...
I'll be right back. I gotta go to the bathroom again.
If you have the paid tier, you get out to more people, which is another reason I'm thinking of doing it and cross-posting my videos there as well. Because I might get more viewers there than I get on YouTube, Odyssey, and Rumble combined. just based on how many people, look at my posts now. I'd try it for a month at least, I guess. Fix my computer first. I haven't wanted to jinx it, but it's going well. I've got 1,212 dropped frames, but that's not all that unusual. That might be more of an internet thing than a computer thing. But yeah, CPU's chugging along. See, here's the thing. I can give the CPU a ton to do, and it chugs along right through it. I can give the GPU a ton to do if it's like a Blender render or an AI thing or something, where it copies all of the assets up there to the GPU, and the GPU just chugs along at 100% for however long, and it does fine. It's all the little things where it's moving things from one part to another. That's what gets it. That's why I think it's the PCIe bus.
I'm back. What I miss?
Oh, I was just talking about my computer problems some more.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I've been drinking a lot of fluids, so...
I don't think it's the GPU because, like I said, I can give the GPU a bunch of stuff to do. It'll chug along at 100% for a long time and do it. Same with the CPU. It's the little things where it's moving back and forth. Things like editing text in Photoshop will crash it. And no, it's not the version of Photoshop because I ended up going back like 6 months to an earlier version of Photoshop that I didn't have any problems with, and it's still doing it. So it's not Photoshop. Unverified posts with 1,000 or even hundreds of followers are getting 100,000 views in 24 hours, while anyone outside of their political circle are lucky to get fractions. It's rigged. Are you talking about X or YouTube?
Yeah, sorry, I keep on leaving a lot. I've got a cold, so I'm drinking a lot of liquids, and you know what that means.
I mean, I could try $7 for a month. Probably try it next month because I paid ChatGPT another $20 to help me keep diagnosing X and possibly YouTube. I don't know. Ever since Elon took over and, started, after a while, after everything got going, I've been getting a lot better mix of right and left posts. Whereas before it was just Commie Central Station, and now that's Bluesky.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I was like, I really I want to check and see after the Charlie Kirk thing, can Bluesky really be as bad as they said it was? And so I said, I'm just going to go there and look at, oh my God. I didn't even have to look for those posts. They just showed up everywhere. Just horrible. Speaking of Bluesky, celebrating his murder and calling for more of them. It's like, geez.
Yeah. I'm
going to continue calling it Bluesky.
I saw what Mark Hamill wrote on Bluesky, and that ruined my childhood. I'm sorry, Mark Hamill, but Luke Skywalker would hate you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then again, I'm sure.
Zen wants to know which is worse, Bluesky or Mastodon. That is a tough call, man.
I mean, though, to be fair, going back to Luke Skywalker hating Mark Hamill, I'm pretty sure Jean-Luc Picard would have a couple of things to say to Patrick Stewart. Yeah.
You gotta separate the actor from the character. They're not the same thing.
Yeah, imagine Patrick Stewart talking about how socialism is great and all that, and then Jean-Luc Picard says, Mr. Stewart, remember when we battled the Borg and we learned all about it, collectivism, and we learned how awful and oppressive it was?
And it wasn't just the Borg. There were a couple of other times where they did things that were pretty securely anti-commie. I'm trying to think.
I mean, hell, in the original Star Trek show, I remember reading there were a couple of times where the Enterprise would go to a planet where the planet was collectively run by a central state, and there was like a strict class and collectivist system put in place, and in one of those particular circumstances, Captain Kirk actually brought up the U.S. Constitution to point out how this is not the way to rule a society.
Oh yeah, of course the Cardassians, especially the one with David Warner, where he was interrogating Picard, and he said, "Yeah,
Yeah.
back then we were poor and we were miserable, and now that we've got this big central government, and now that we got this big military, and we got all our military, war engine going, everyone's happy and fed, and I know my daughter will be well fed." And Picard said, "What was it? Her belly may be full, but her spirit will be empty," or something like that. God, I love
And you
that
kind of brought it
episode.
up. You kind of brought it up too with the Borg too. That was kind of the whole point of the Borg, and to a lesser extent in Doctor Who, the Cyberman. It's like, yes, technically the Borg society works, but it's all those things where you don't want that.
The Cybermen are the ultimate egalitarian society.
Yep.
There is no hate. There's no differences in race or religion or nationality or anything else.
Yep. Yep.
They've removed hate. They've removed fear.
Yep. But it's not the society you want to live in because you're basically you're a robot. You're more man than machine. And there's an old saying: "What's the point in living if you can't be alive?"
Yep.
Yeah.
Because they turn
And the
their
dialects are
emotions off.
Yep. And the dialects are the exact opposite. They hate everyone and everything.
Well, because Davros genetically engineered them to have no emotions other than hate.
Yep.
And they've also established that the way they fire the gun is with a strong emotion. And that's why they kind of have to whip themselves up into a frenzy. Exterminate! Exterminate! Before they can fire. They got to get those emotions up so they can fire that gun.
Yeah. I did see this one fan comic where the Borg encounters the dialect, and the Borg tries absolute everything to assimilate them, and the reason why they keep failing is because like you said, the dialects, their hatred is so strong it actually overpowers the collective mindset of the Borg, and they start turning on each other because they start developing the same hatred as the dialects.
The Borg would never get close enough to try.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, they would.
Yeah, I can imagine the scenario. It would be like you will be assimilated, and they do that scan or however they assimilate the technology, only to discover they can't counteract it, and the dialect just goes, "My technology is not assimilated." Yeah. Yeah, because like you said, the dialect, they are pure hatred. Actually, I remember watching when Chris Eccleston, when he took over the role, there was an episode where he gets the dialects and he notices that the dialects are showing other emotions, like they have a sense of religion and purpose, and that's when they get mad when he criticizes them and they say, "You will not blaspheme," and he's like, "Wait a minute, dialects don't really care about blasphemy or religion. They just hate everything that isn't a dialect."
Well, that was what the Emperor Dalek had established after he survived the Time War, because he started converting humans into Daleks, and using the innate religiosity of humans left over so that they would worship him. Let's see, it's better under Elon, but it still needs a lot of work. Changing the algo to make the feeds more organic would be a great next step. He did post something the other day where it was like, "Is everything better now?" or something. And it wasn't very specific, but he was implying that the algorithm should be working better now. Elon's X does not censor conservatives as much. They can get a foothold. But the Dorsey era post-boosting has not been fully dismantled. It needs to be in order for organic reach to happen again. Yeah, maybe you're right. The Necron destroyer cult and the Daleks. Yeah, Daleks would wipe them out. The Time Lords could only barely stand up to the Daleks. You're talking about they're the two most advanced races in the universe. It's like when you finally had the Daleks and the Cybermen together, and it wasn't even a contest. The Daleks are even better at trash talking.
Oh yeah. I still love that. I still love though that line from that Chris Eccleston told them the dialects when he told them about how their cause is lost and they're no longer the pure dialects. They're like these mutated abomination, and the only thing that dialect can do is kill themselves. And I like the very last word where he says before he kills himself, as he goes, "You would have made a great dialect."
Or when Peter Capaldi's doctor meets Rusty for the first time, and Rusty is like turning against the Daleks and everything you believe. It's like, I can't believe it. You're a good Dalek. And Rusty says, I am not a good Dalek. You are a good Dalek. Oh, the Raston Warrior Robot. Yeah. I just happened to glance over at Zen. He needs to have his... Yeah, it's been a while. But yeah, the Raston Warrior Robot. Oh, my God.
Yep.
Not even one Raston Warrior Robot versus, what, a couple dozen Cybermen? And it wasn't... They didn't stand a chance.
Yeah. I did think...
the Daleks would be doomed to fail. Even the Borg won't succeed in the long run. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if I recall correctly, didn't they literally save themselves from being erased from the time?
Oh, a few times, yeah.
Yeah. Like the Time Lords literally tried to erase them from existence, and they still came back because of their perseverance. Yeah, I don't think the Borg could do anything to do that.
Yeah, because the cult of Skaro was able to use Time Lord technology to make a void ship and hide out in the void. So technically they were wiped out of all space and time. But you have the cult of Skaro in the void where they can come back.
Yep. It's also so, it's so ironic.
I think that's probably thinking about it. Does anyone remember the special weapons Dalek? Oh my God, that thing. The speculated reason for Dorsey's changes was to, one, make it easier for the far left to mobilize the network and make it harder for anyone else. It was also to intimidate and demoralize. Yeah.
Also, going back to the dialects, another thing I think that was probably intentional. The funny irony is that yeah, the dialects are dangerous. They're technologically superior. They have all this fancy stuff. But when you remove their armor, they're actually kind of pathetic-looking creatures.
Well, they've done some episodes that show you shouldn't count out the mutants, even outside of the Dalek shell. If they have an ounce of strength, they will strangle your ass.
Yeah.
That was actually, in Genesis of the Daleks when it all started. The Doctor's going to go in to blow it up, and that's one of the cliffhangers. Harry and Sarah are wondering, why hasn't he come out yet? He finally comes out, and he's just being strangled by one of the mutants. It takes all three of them to fight it off.
I'm probably never going to write it down, but I once had this idea for a Star Trek fanfic, where there's like a psyker-like alien that has super powerful, almost, telepathic abilities to the point where he can actually distort reality and all that, and he actually comes to the Milky Way galaxy because his species has learned about, the Enterprise and the Borg, and they think that they're becoming so powerful that they need to be quote-unquote nerfed or whatever, and he comes there and he's taking a tour through that, and they're trying to show how great their civilization is, and they show him, the replicator and all that, and they're bragging about how the replicator can do everything, and that's why we don't need capitalism anymore. And you know what the psyker does to destroy the replicator? He goes, so this thing can do everything and recreate anything. Okay, let me ask you this. Replicator, make me something that you think I will enjoy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it self-destructs because how can it know that? It can't know that.
So what's better, Star Trek or Stargate? Well, Stargate was so good, but I would have to say the original Star Trek is better. The 60s series.
Yeah.
And the first 6 movies together.
I think you mentioned it too. Like, one of the original writers of both the original Star Trek and Star Trek: The Next Generation said the biggest regret he ever made was making those damn replicators, because then it literally throws the lore into a loop, because it's like, well, what's the point in doing all this if they can just replicate everything?
Yeah, they did everything they could to kind of forget that the replicators existed.
Yep.
Ira Stephen Bear hated the replicators. He didn't go into it. It'd be great if he elaborated, but he said any society that has a replicator destroys itself.
Yep. Actually, I don't know how true it would be.
Thinking, but
like, I don't know how true it would be, but I remember reading someone saying that in real life, if the Borg were real, they would actually not be a galactic threat. Because here's the thing: if they were a pure collective hive mind that had no individual emotions or ambitions, they would have no imperial ambitions. They would literally just sit around and just exist. Because what would be their motivation? They don't have the joy and passion. People do things like invade other places because they think what they're doing is generally good for what they believe in. That's why actually the Cybermen can get away with it, because as you pointed out, the Cybermen aren't 100% emotionless. They still have, that altruistic feeling to themselves, so it makes sense for them to want to actually go out and say, hey, let's make everyone Cybermen, because then the entire universe will be peaceful.
Yep.
Yeah, whereas the Borg are just, we assimilate and collectivize because we're the Borg, that's what we do.
Oh, original Twilight Zone Zen, so good. And the 85 revival was pretty darn good too. They had some good stuff there as well. Such a good show. And the original Outer Limits was really good as well.
Oh yeah, it's one episode of the Twilight Zone I like, even though I'm an atheist, The Obsolete Man.
Which one was
remember that episode? That's the episode where a librarian who's also a passionate Christian, he's taken into a Soviet-style Inquisition where he's told, listen, you're reading books and you're preaching Christianity, even though the state has declared books obsolete and Christianity and God doesn't exist, so Christianity is obsolete. So they sentence him to death, but he makes a last request saying, I want to be killed by a method that's only known between me and my executioner, and I want it to be televised. And so the leader comes to visit him to administer, whatever, basically the state's equivalent of a last rite. But then he locks him in and reveals, yeah, the way I want to die, I had a bomb planted in my room, and it's going to explode in an hour, and the door's locked, and I have the key. And at first, the leader's like, oh yeah, you're going to cave, you're going to try to get out of here. But eventually the leader starts breaking down, and he begs him to let him go, and the episode ends where he escapes before the room blows up, but he's declared obsolete because he showed cowardice.
Yeah, I remember that one now, yeah.
Yeah.
And Zen points out that JMS and George R.R. Martin both worked on the 85 revival. Yeah, and Rockne S. O'Bannon as well, who was one of the big minds behind Farscape.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Inquisitive Fidel, like so many people are like, why did the Borg have a queen? That ruined it. Well, because the sad reality is that at the end of the day, when you think about it, going back to what I said, the Borg kind of needed to have that one type of authority figure that's guiding them, because like I said, on their own, if they're an individual hive mind with no personal ambitions or anything, they wouldn't be out in the galaxy. They would literally be stuck on their original home planet and just sit there, because there would literally be no incentive for them.
Yep, the commies need a leader. You gotta have a dictator.
Yep.
That was a good movie too.
I mean, the Cybermen briefly had a leader, in that one episode involving the 10th Doctor. Yeah.
Well,
where they
number of cyber leaders.
Yeah, where they assimilated that one lady and made her a Cyberman. However, her willpower, her emotions and willpower are so strong, she overrides the thing, and she goes, wow, all this power and knowledge at my disposal, it's beautiful. And they're like, negative, that kind of sentiment has no purpose in the Cyberman world. And she kills the Cybermen that criticize her, and they're all like, okay, you're our leader.
And the Daleks, of course, they, each like regiment has a supreme Dalek, and then there's the Emperor Dalek and above all those. Yep, they got to have their command structure. Daleks are all about that. They need orders and they need to obey. That's basically their whole reason for being, is to obey. Oh, I think we got 1 minute left. If any of you have any last thoughts you want to get out. But it is 8 o'clock and my computer made it without crashing. Yay. Hang on, it wasn't right. Let me try it again. My computer made it without crashing. Yay. Oh, come on. Hang on. Try it again. My computer made it without crashing. Yay. That's still not going through. Oh, well. My soundboard isn't getting through. I had an applause sound I was trying to play. Hello? I'm not hearing anything from Chris. All right. Well, thanks everyone for participating. Who did we have? We had SKM, we had Inquisitive Infidel, we had SKM, we had Mr. No. We had a Ukrainian libertarian. Welcome to the Ukrainians. And of course, Fighting Zen, as usual, over on Rumble. Thanks to all of you. Please remember, donate.pagosity.tv. Keep me doing this, especially since I got a computer I need fixed. I need money for that. This is also my production machine, so I don't make money doing anything else until I get that fixed. All right, thank you so very much. Until next time, stay strong.